Well, hello and welcome to the Make It Count podcast. I'm Tanya Waymire, your host. And today we have a guest that you are definitely going to want to tune in for. Some people talk about building. Sheila Fejeran actually does it. She's a co-founder of Powerhouse Development Group and BlockProp Global, working at the intersection of real estate development, energy, private equity, and regulated asset fractionalization, where execution matters. She's led 15,000 agents across 24 countries, driven 90 billion, that's with a B, in sales, and for 9 consecutive years ranked as the top woman globally at eXp Realty. She's also a mother, a woman of faith, and an 8-time Amazon best-selling author. And what makes her leadership different is simple. She believes peace isn't passive. It's how you build without losing what matters. Let me welcome Miss Sheila. Sheila, we are so glad to have you.
Hello. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Now, if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself with our listeners and our watchers.
Sure. So, like a lot of people, I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, farm girl, and always had a dream for something bigger. I've been in real estate for the last 25 years, doing development, residential, commercial, multifamily, all of that. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was an owner and helped build a pharmaceutical company and sold it to Walgreens. And then before that, I started out in the media business running radio stations.
Oh, wow. So what's a little bit about the diversity? There's a lot of diversity there. Usually people pick one lane, if you will, and kind of and scale that one lane, but you've picked many lanes.
Yeah, it's kind of that stumbling into things. Sometimes that happens. Yeah. So I wound up having a client get me into the pharmaceutical side because they were going through infertility at the time, and this company was a startup company looking for somebody to help them build it. She said, I know exactly who you need. And then basically once we built and sold that, I was still pretty young, and it's like, okay, now what? We've done that, now what? And that's when I wound up getting into real estate. Started in the development side first, working for Jerry Jones, who owns a big development company here in Dallas, and a couple of other large builders before I moved on to the brokerage side.
You said you were pretty young when you helped build the pharmaceuticals and sell it to Walgreens. If you don't mind me asking, around what age were you?
Like late 20s, 30s.
Come on now. Was the plan the entire time to build it to sell? Was that kind of the point, was the exit strategy was to scale it and sell it?
Well, I was just one of the owners. The main owner, the CEO of the company, always had that vision. But I'm the executor. So I'm the one that met with all the doctors around the country and helped everybody. We actually were the first company that created mail order infertility drugs.
Wow.
So we created that process. And then they moved me to Texas. I was in New York City. They moved me to Texas to help build a rheumatology and a neurology division. So we had multiple divisions before we sold.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, because of how fascinating I find your background, I did take some notes too. So I'm going to, because I want to make sure that we get the opportunity to really pour into the people who are watching and listening.
Sure.
Because, and I know I mentioned this to you this morning, growing up on a farm in Kentucky to what you've managed to scale, right, nationally and globally, the odds of that happening are up to 4%. Like that's the average of somebody taking and breaking that sort of familial cycle of whatever it is when it comes to compensation or occupation, right? Employee versus entrepreneur. So I know you're going to get into a lot of that because that was a hill to climb. And I'm excited for you to share it. So let's start with this one. You've navigated diverse worlds, from media and pharmaceutical sales to scaling real estate teams globally, and now into energy and private equity. What's the through line in your leadership approach that stayed consistent?
I would say the thing that is has been my superpower is my mindset as a learner. So I have a learner's heart, and I never feel like I've arrived. So it didn't matter how good I was at what I was doing. I always have the perspective of you can always learn more. And so I think that that's been the consistency throughout every company I've been in, is that I'm always seeking to be better.
Yeah.
I think sometimes for people, and I know this is predominantly for women, but I know a lot of leaders, and leaders don't talk about this, but a lot of leaders struggle with something called imposter syndrome. And so that is something that I've struggled with, and it can be very good for you because it drives you. You become very aggressively driven to succeed. But the other side of that, or the damaging side of that, is the toll it does on you emotionally and mentally. So one of the things that helped me a lot is getting to the point where the drive's still there. I mean, I wake up at 3 a.m. I can't sleep. I'm thinking, my mind's just blah, 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 constantly going with ideas. But the difference now is that I don't beat myself up over things,
Yeah.
just tear myself down mentally. Now I extend grace to myself, or kindness to myself, and I'm patient with myself because I understand this is how I'm built. I'm built to drive. That's just who I am. But you have to learn to be realistic and gracious with yourself. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself into the ground. So I think that that's very important, especially for people who are naturally a very driven leader.
It's interesting you said give yourself grace and kindness. What does that look like for you? So you've had a situation, instead of tearing yourself down, what does that grace for yourself look like?
I literally talk to myself, sometimes out loud, and just say, hey, listen, you did the best you could. Let's break down what could have been better, or break down what you need to change the next time. And it's not about failing. I don't look at failure anymore in the sense of you're a failure. I look at it as failing forward. Like, what can I learn from this? Kind of the whole Edison thing. You know, if he tried 1,000 times or whatever, he wouldn't have created the light bulb. So it's kind of like, what can I learn from this? What can I do better? And then my favorite 4-letter word is next. Next, let's do it. Let's keep going. Don't look back. Keep going. And that helps me a lot to still strive for excellence in everything I do, and to succeed at high levels, but in a way that is, if you're not gracious with yourself, Brene Brown says this actually in some of her books, if you're not gracious with yourself or kind to yourself, you can't extend that to other people. So if I'm going to be a great leader, I have to start with me, of, you know, how am I leading myself? That becomes an extension of how I lead other people.
Yeah. It's interesting too, I think, as women, because of wearing so many different hats. You're a mother, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. There are some lanes that people will give themselves grace and hold themselves to a standard, but then not in others.
Yes.
Have you found that to be any of a challenge in your journey at all?
Yeah, of course. I think something that helped me a lot too throughout this, I mean, this isn't like, you don't change overnight, right? I mean, I started studying the Bible when I was like 25. So that's like 34 years ago or whatever. So it's decades in the making, like decades of looking at myself, of who am I and who do I want to become, and really examining what needs to change. So it's just that methodical step by step going after it, whether it's internally or externally, because the peace book that we're getting ready to release, I talk a lot in that book about, if you don't start inside, whatever comes outside is a reflection of what's inside. And a lot of leaders, a lot of very successful people focus so much on this outside stuff. And then people wonder why their lives fall apart, or they become addicts, or they become they are disasters. Well, it's because they're focused on the outside and they haven't dealt with the inside. I start from the inside out.
That's so good. And you're right. So important too. Okay, we're going to go do some more fun ones, because I want to make sure we pull as much as possible here out of you. So many entrepreneurs struggle to balance scaling a business with being present at home. On days when everything pulls you 1,000 directions, what are the practices that keep peace and family at the center?
So a book was released probably 15 years or 15 to 20 years ago by a guy named Hal Elrod,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Miracle Morning. And he spoke at the same conference that I met our mutual friend Tammy at.
Yeah.
And I was astonished at what he had overcome in his life to write that book. And basically, the framework of the book is how to structure your morning to accomplish everything you want in life before you go to work. That's really the basis of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it teaches you how to get up at 4 a.m. and then use your morning to basically design your life. And so I started doing that practice, and it became my fuel for everything else in my life. I got up at 4. A lot of times I wake up at 3:30 or 3 naturally. I have my quiet time. I read, I pray, I do deep dives on scripture studies. I study different languages, Greek, Hebrew, all of that stuff to understand what things mean, commentaries, just really deep diving on things that matter to me. And then I start examining every area of my life, everything from what I think, what I feel, how I act, the way I eat, the way I treat people, every single part of my life, I've pulled it apart and examined it. And it's really that structure that I have in the morning is what gives me the peace for the rest of the day, because I'm prepared for whatever chaos comes. and then it helps me to make the plan, because you're designing your life. And that also became the structure I used with my children, in the sense of I started saying, we're going to schedule our entire year in advance for our family. So I wanted them to know, after God, they're first. My kids are first.
Yeah.
So we plan our vacations. We schedule our family times. We scheduled any trips for birthdays or holidays we were doing together, events that were coming up. Like my son's a music composer, so he's having things that film previews or whatever that we schedule going to. Mm-hmm. They know that they are my top priority after God. And so that gave structure to our family life, a very specific, dedicated time to them that they knew how important they were to me. And it's really about, and you mentioned this, I think, in one of our communications over this past week, is that it's who do you want to be? It's not about doing. It's about being. We're human beings. We're not human doings, right? So who do you want to be? So my family still has that practice today. We still attend everything together. We're very, very close. But during that process that I was going through and unraveling all of this, I created, and I know you've probably heard of vision boards. A lot of corporations use vision boards, but vision boards are really about what you want. Like, I want a new car, I want a new house, I want to take a vacation, whatever. And those are those outside things. So I said, what are the inside things? So I created what I call a BE board. Who do I want to be? I created a vision board that's a B board about what do I want to be known for? Like, if I died today, what do I want people to say about me? And that really started changing things, because then it was like, for instance, kindness was one of the first ones I worked on. I want to be known as a kind person. Well, what does that look like? How do you become kind? How do you make that choice on a day-to-day basis to be kind? So then I started studying everything I could find about kindness, and then making daily decisions, moment by moment decisions, in situations where I could have chosen not to be kind, to be kind. And then over the course of time, like everything else, the more you practice something, the easier it gets. So that was kind of what I did.
Well, and it sounds second nature for you. I think we have quite a few people who are on here who may not have ever even heard of a vision board. So as you talk about a B board, can you paint a little bit of a picture what that might look like in case somebody wanted to take that practice and do it for themselves?
Sure. So in the real estate space, which is what I've been operating in, we have coaching companies, or, even your brokerage or whatever will coach you. And they encourage you to take a poster board, like what you would do with your kids when they're doing school projects or whatever. You can take crayons, you can take markers, you can cut out pictures out of magazines or whatever. And the whole goal is to have a visual in front of you of what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And that can be in every area of your life. So if I want a beach house, or I want a new Mercedes, or I want whatever, you put that on your vision board of this is what I'm going for. This is my heart's desire, if you want to say it that way. And then you keep it in front of you every day. And I wound up getting a software where I made mine digitally so I could keep it on my desktop, not just because I travel a lot. And that way I had it in front of me. And shockingly, it didn't take me long to accomplish everything that was on my board. It's amazing how quickly, when you write it down and visualize it and go through the steps of actually identifying what your heart's desire is, how quickly you wind up figuring out, or you just wind up accomplishing it.
Well, in the B board, that's the first time I've heard that. And that's really interesting, because when we think about, as adults, most of our subconscious beliefs are formed by the time we're 7 years old.
Absolutely.
And once we're adults, though, and there's an awareness around it, we can change them, which is how we are able to sort of change our circumstances or our situations with being intentional.
Right.
And when I think about the things that tend to keep people stuck, you mentioned imposter syndrome. That's a big one.
Big one.
Self-worth is another big one.
Big one.
Which connects to confidence, right? Yep. What other ones come to mind for you as you think about things that like keep people stuck where they're at and not, they have the capacity, they have the capability, but for whatever reason, these are the things that are stopping them from probably achieving what God has planned for them, right?
Yeah. I'm actually writing a book right now on that. And it's shame, blame, and judgment are the three big ones that I find I speak all over the world and counsel people. And I find that most people live in this, if you want to say, cycle of shame.
Yeah.
Shaming themselves, shaming others, feeling ashamed, hiding, fear, all the things that kind of come along with that. I call them frenemies, because it's like shame doesn't come alone. It brings all these frenemies with it.
Yeah.
And so then you have to say, okay, how do I get rid of those frenemies? And I want new friends. I don't want those friends anymore.
Yeah.
And then blame is a big one, because when you're living in shame or feeling shame or ashamed or hiding in fear, a lot of people, shame is a really big one. I started that in 2010 with Brene Brown's TED Talk. And I just really dove deep into shame and all the ways it kind of unpacks or unpeels in our lives, because I realized that as women, especially in our culture, we live in that culture where we're shamed a lot. We're shamed about how we look. We're shamed about our weight. We're shamed about all sorts of stuff. And if we can't get through the shame of ourselves or rejecting the shame from other people, we have a very, very, very difficult time ever becoming who we were actually intended to be. Like you mentioned, God designed us with these great gifts and these great talents. Every one of us have gifts from God, I believe. And that it's like, how can I become someone who uses everything that I've been given to be not only a blessing for me, but a blessing for the world? Because I believe we're given gifts so that we then become a gift to the world. That's my personal opinion. And so how can I get rid of all this stuff, all these frenemies and things in my way that keep me from becoming that gift? And then I receive the blessing of knowing I'm utilizing everything that's been made available to me.
Yeah. And when you're talking about shame, it was interesting. We all have milestones in our lives. And there was a milestone that was happening for me in my life journey. And I was away from my husband in a hotel. And I had the worst dream, Sheila. I'm not sure if you've ever had that, but before going into this next day, which was going to be transformative, the dreams were so bad, anchored in shame, and not even real shame. But you know what our minds tell us we believe to see as reality.
Exactly.
And it was so disturbing and it was so upsetting. And the next morning when I was talking to my husband about it, he goes, "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry." I said, "I'm not," because that tells me that this transformation is even bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are forces that want to keep us from our greatness.
Absolutely.
So who are we going to let win? Right?
Exactly.
And that's so that's kind of another way, like a perspective, right? Sometimes it's just it's a perspective or mindset shift on that.
Exactly.
That's so when is the book coming out, since you mentioned the book?
Well, I just released, well, I've got the other one coming out on peace, the power of peace right now. We just announced the book cover yesterday. Tammy's in the midst of finalizing the editing and publishing. And so I've got to get through that process. And then I'm about probably between halfway and 3/4 of the way through that next book. So it'll come out probably sometime next spring.
So the book with the shame, blame, and judgment, is that the peace one that's coming out now or the next one?
Nope, the next one. It's called Obstacles to Prayer.
Yeah. That's good. I appreciate you sharing that too. And if no one has had the opportunity to read any of your books, you've had 8 bestsellers, Amazon bestsellers. What are kind of the themes across that? You don't have to give us all 8, but if you think back about the books that you have written, what's sort of that journey or the messaging?
Well, interestingly enough, it's been all this process that I mentioned I've been going through. That's how I wound up writing books. It was just during that miracle morning time, and I just started writing from that process, because you have to process. Right. You have to process what you're thinking and feeling and who you are and what your dreams are and where you want to go and what you need to change and all that. And it was just an overflowing, so to speak, that the books wound up coming about from me going through this whole process. So the most recent one that just came out like a month ago is called The Lord's Prayer Part 1. I actually it took me 6 years to write that book. I've been praying the Lord's Prayer for a framework for 15 years about. And a lot of people don't understand how to pray, what to pray. Yeah. Position or posture to take when praying. And so I break the entire first part of the Lord's Prayer down in that book. And it was so much information. My son, I gave him my author's copy. He's like, "Wow, this is huge. It's like 340 pages. I said, "Yeah, and it's only half the prayer." I said, "Could you imagine if I had written on the entire prayer?" But I go through the actual historical timeline, bringing everything together from the very beginning to why the new covenant came about, and every word of the prayer. I break the entire thing down. Wow. So that's the most recent one. The one before that is called Loved by God, because that was a big block for me, is again, that whole imposter syndrome. I felt like, how could God love me because I'm such a mess? And what it took for me to get to the point of actually accepting that love. And that's what helped me extend kindness and grace to myself, because he extended it to me. So, and then I can turn around and extend it to other people, because you can't give away what you don't have. Right. Right. So if I don't have love and kindness and grace myself, how in the world am I ever going to love people or be kind? Because you can't love someone in a way that you don't know how to love. It's just not possible. Right. It's phony. So I wanted to learn how to love people in a way that God loves us. And that's what drove me on that vision and mission, to figure that out. Got it. Yeah. When we think about, and I know you've had a lot of challenges in life too, and we're not necessarily going to dig into those. But one thing I found when I think back on childhood traumas or situations, right, personally, Romans 8:8, right? All things for good. He uses all things for good for those who believe in him. Yep. And I think the greatest gift that I got from childhood trauma was the ability to forgive. Right? And people, I don't think, understand how much hate or animosity and anger
just eats at our being.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's certainly not something I would want on my B board. But I'm like, we're both highly functioning alpha females. I mean, we probably could be if we wanted to be. That's what we chose to be. But yeah, definitely not the one we're choosing. But what about you? If you think back just on your adversities through life and maybe the gifts that might have come from those.
Whew. Wow. I mean, I know the old saying is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right?
Yeah. Doesn't feel like it in the process, but yeah.
No, it doesn't feel like it. I mean, from a work perspective, I think I've learned that setbacks are a lot of times things are put in front of us to make us or break us, so to speak, in the sense of, like you said, there are different forces working. I believe God's working for our good in everything. Yeah. And I believe there's other forces working to try to harm us. Right. And so if I look at it just from that perspective, when I have a setback, I think, who is this from?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we actually flip roles and we blame God for things, thinking that it's for our harm, instead of really being patient and examining it and saying, is this really for my harm, or was this actually meant to protect me from myself? Yeah. And because God will shut doors to protect us. And a lot of times we're just banging our head against the door trying to get through because we want it so bad, instead of stepping back and saying, wait a minute, I need to really lay this out and pray about it and find out, who is this setback really from? That helped me a lot to not be angry at God, because being a high driving personality, when you don't get your way, then anger can come, or frustration can come, or disappointment can come. And then, forget it. If you don't want to give it to me, then you must not be real, or whatever, those kinds of things could come. Yeah. Instead of just saying, I'm going to trust you that you're perfect and you know what's best and you will only do good for me. And so I'm going to lay it out and pray about it and do my part, do my work. But I'm going to trust that you're going to expose whether this was a door shut from you, or whether I need to keep going because it's not from you and it's another force trying to stop me from accomplishing what you want me to accomplish. Yeah. So, and that's not always easy to do. I don't believe. It takes a lot of that quiet time. That quiet time is key to life. We in our society, especially America, everybody's running so fast and furious, like 90 miles an hour all day long, and back-to-back meetings, totally consumed, no time to think, no downtime, exhausted, whatever. Until you structure your whole life around, who am I going to be? And that includes God, that includes, your choices, your exercise, your mentality, all those things. Until you have that in order, everything else is running you instead of you running it, right?
Yeah, busyness is the killer of dreams, is kind of how I see it.
Absolutely.
Before they know it, they turn around, their kids are grown, they're empty nesters.
Regret's the number one thing old people, like prior to passing away, is all the regrets they have. Well, I don't want regrets. Yeah. I don't want regrets with my children. I don't want regrets with myself. So how do you live a regret-free life? You take the time to design and live out the life you want.
Yeah, to be intentional, right?
Intentional. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I was coaching someone. I don't know, it was actually on a Saturday. It was last Saturday. Young lady works a 9 to 5 and she wants to build her own business. She goes, but I've got a 9 to 5, so I have no time. And I thought, and like, it kept hitting me. I thought, what do you mean you have no time? What about before 9 and after 5? In my mind, right? Yeah. So I think also people have to figure out, is it something that they want badly enough to do the work for it?
That's it right there.
Yeah. Because being an entrepreneur is not easier.
Nope.
How would you describe being an entrepreneur versus being an employee?
Well, it's what you said. How bad do you want it?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you willing to do to get it?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you have to do what you have to do to survive. I was a single mom for most of my kids' life, right?
Yeah.
So I had to do certain things to pay the bills and put food on the table for my boys.
Yeah.
There were a lot of other things that I wanted to accomplish or achieve personally that had nothing to do with me putting food on the table. So I tell people, even coming into real estate, or my son's a composer. So I said, you know, it'd be great coming out of college to just boom, land a film and become this awesome John Williams composer. I said, life doesn't work that way. The way it works is you get a job, a job, doing something that pays your bills.
Yeah.
Then with the time you have allotted for the rest of the day, you have to figure out how to utilize that time to do the things and make the effort to move you forward in your goals of being a movie composer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an aha for him because he never thought that, oh, I have to just do something that I don't want to do to pay my bills. And then I have to do another thing until I can get to the point where that thing overtakes the thing that's paying my bills.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have overlap, you're going to, it's a regression, right? We see
Exactly.
people get out of, they leave corporate America, if you will, thinking now I'm going to do this thing because they've lapped. But
Yeah.
the problem is they only do the one thing. And then that one-to-one trade-off typically results in having to go back.
Oh yeah. I see people coming out of the corporate world wanting to be a realtor thinking, oh, I can do this. And they quit their job without having savings, without having a backup, without having a plan, and think just getting their license, they're going to be able to sell homes. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So we counsel people to keep your full-time job, start at night or on the weekends, step by step, learning, growing, building a book of business. And then when that overtakes the other to where it can replace that income, that's when you switch. And
Yeah.
so anybody in a 9 to 5, that's what I would encourage them to do. And I mean, there were years I worked 17 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot get to that goal without putting in a whole lot of extra double time effort.
Yep.
So that it can then replace the other income. It's not possible.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree completely. And it's not that we're saying a corporate job or a 9 to 5 is a bad thing, right?
No,
Just to clarify for the people watching and listening.
Yeah.
It's just for some people, if they have it on their heart that they're wanting to do this thing or own this thing or build this thing.
Exactly.
Right. Sometimes the mindset around what it's going to take isn't clear enough.
Yeah.
And they don't realize how much work it can be. Okay. You ready for the next fun question?
Yes.
Okay. Now I got to figure out which one because we don't have a whole lot of more time left. And like, oh my gosh, they're all so good. I did such a deep dive. I'm grateful that we've gotten to meet too.
You did a great job, by the way, setting up all this structure of questions you had. You really did an amazing job. I just want to tell you that.
I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Well, we just covered that one. Let's see. Tell us about a real-time moment, maybe even a crisis, a setback, or a breakthrough, where choosing peace over urgency changed the outcome for your business or your team.
Okay. So I have a partner that we're building it's called a market maker, which is an all-inclusive system to trade real world assets on secondary market, tokenization and fractionalization. And he and I started building blockchain 5 years ago together with the goal of building one set of products. And then that CEO kind of went to the wayside. So then we started building with a couple other CEOs. And then we decided to move to the fractionalization side instead of just the blockchain side and helped a CEO with that. And that became very clear that CEO just couldn't get it past the goal line. And so finally I'm like, listen, we need to just stop. We need to just build it ourselves from scratch. You know, you go a couple steps backwards to go forward. And we need to have our own dev team, our our everything from scratch, literally, that we own the whole system, every piece of the system. And I'm so grateful we did that, but that's one of those setbacks where it's like, oh, we've been doing this so long. I wish we would have just been able to launch one of these companies.
Yeah.
And, you know, how people always say, well, you were an overnight success. And I'm like, yeah, we've been building for 10 years and now you're seeing it. That was an overnight success. So I guess for me, I think of it from the perspective for leaders is that if you have a vision,
Mm-hmm.
and you know there's something that you have that you can offer value that you want to build, and the marketplace doesn't have it or doesn't offer it yet. And if you want to do it the right way, it's okay to take the time and go through the process, even though it's arduous, right? To spend the money, build it yourself, do it the right way, do it the way you envisioned, so that when it comes out the other side, the product does exactly what you want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you have to have the patience and the piece together, right, to get to that ultimate goal. And what seems like a setback, I look back over these last 5 years of all the things we built and people we've met and connections we've made. I'm like, oh my gosh, all of that. If we had not done all of that, we could not build what we're building today.
Yeah.
All of that gave us the ability to build the product that's coming out now. So again, it's all about perspective. How are you going to look at the setback? Are you going to look at it like, oh, well, I failed, I'm done? Or, okay, that was a setback. What can I learn? And what do we need to do next time? And just keep going. Don't give up on your vision. If you have a vision, if God's put something on your heart, there's a reason. There's a reason, and it's meant to be something that he put for you to build. That meaning that's your dream. That's your purpose. And it doesn't matter if it takes longer to get there. It's okay.
Yeah. What came to mind for me as far as the value, as you described all of that, is endurance, right? You were saying patience and peace, and I'm sure those were inner like beings you had to have.
Yep.
But it's the endurance to continue as well, right? I think as a society, we're very instant gratification. And I'm generalizing, instant gratification.
Absolutely.
And results oriented. And if we can't see the result quickly enough, then we just kind of let it go.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. What are common misconceptions leaders have about peace as a strategy, and why do they miss the power of it?
Yeah, that's a great topic. That's that new book that's coming out. And it's a book that's meant to talk specifically to leaders of organizations who want to create a peaceful workplace to help them become more successful. And a lot of people think that, I guess the misconception is that being a peacemaker doesn't always mean being peaceful. Let me say it that way. That creating a peaceful workplace doesn't mean the absence of conflict or avoiding conflict. And in my younger years, I did that. In my younger years, as a woman, again, women have to be more careful about this than men because of how we're viewed. But I was more worried about trying to be friends with people, even though I was the CEO of the company. So I didn't always confront the things that needed to be confronted, or it got to the point where by the time I had to confront it, I was angry or frustrated and I didn't communicate the right way and may have been mean or whatever in the way I communicated because it was all boiling in me and it just kind of came out.
Yeah.
But having the power of peace in your workplace is you as a leader being willing to have the tough conversations, being willing to address issues directly, holding team members accountable, not only to the organization's goals, but also to their goals and their commitments that they've made to themselves. Because if you're a really good leader, you've figured out and had a very specific process to take them through to help them define what their goals are, because you want to make sure you have people working with you that are aligned with you that you're going the same direction. Because if you have somebody's goals that are over here and you're over here, that alignment is not going to make them a good member of your team. So that's part of the process of making sure you have the right team members. And I think the people pleasing thing for me was that was a really big thing, based on like personality profile. If you've ever gone through that, I'm what they classify as a high I, high D, which means I'm super driven, but I'm very people focused. So I care a lot about people. And I had to learn that it's okay to love people and care a lot about people. You have to care enough about them that you want what's best for them, in the sense of, I don't think this organization's best for you.
Yeah.
I want to let you go so that you can go work with someone who can help you achieve what your goals are, because you're not achieving them here. So it's really truly caring about people enough to let them go so that they can fulfill their dreams that they're not accomplishing with you.
Yeah.
And I think as leaders too, we focus too much on profits. We're so profit focused. We're not people focused. And if you don't focus on the people who are the ones that are going to help you get to the profits, and in order to focus on the people, you have to have that unity and that peace within the workplace, or else you have division and chaos. That's what winds up ensuing.
Well, that's putting the cart profit before the horse, the team, right?
Yeah,
Cart's not going anywhere if your people don't want to come to work and do the job.
Exactly.
The piece being of value, you and I are similar in age. And I remember leading when millennials entered the workforce. And all the dialogue was, I don't understand them. I can't speak their language. And because there was a time that generationally you had boomers, right? Gen X, which is so small, but boomers, Gen X, and then millennials in the workforce. And even now you have all the way to Gen Z.
Right.
But they said they couldn't understand what they were saying. Well, leading people that were 18 to 75, what I realized is values-based leadership, right? Whether they're 18 or whether they're 80, if you say joy, they smile, right? It's a universal language. And when you say peace, if everything about you was peace in a world that's so noisy, people that can resonate. It doesn't matter what their age is.
Yeah. Everybody wants peace, right?
Yeah.
Human nature, everybody wants peace in your home, in your workplace, right? So it's like, if you start with that, and what's keeping us from being at peace or keeping us from being unified as a group, as an organization, it is a fuel that very few people sadly have the ability to experience until they realize what they're missing.
And the conflict is a big piece of it. You and I were talking before the podcast about what children learn in, like, when they go to public school or what have you. And then depending on the household, whether the parents taught them or not, right? Whether it has, how do you deal with money? You were scheduling your vacations your entire year out in advance. That's the same thing with conflict. Conflict and coping skills are two things that I've observed to be strongly missing as far as skills. And it doesn't mean that they're 18.
Exactly.
Right? It could be somebody out of college. It's somebody as they're coming into the workforce that those skills are not developed, and they are skills, right? So you see the pain avoidance, like you were calling it people pleasing as well.
Yep.
People will do pain avoidance because, like, well, I'll just ignore it.
Yep.
They don't recognize that conflict isn't necessarily negative. And coping skills, right? Like, that'll be fun. I'm going to ask you, what's your coping skill? So if I've got something ruminating, my coping skill is cleaning. I figured there's no harm in that, right? My house gets really clean. If I'm like really, something's on my mind and I want to try to move past it, I do my morning time. I'm very intentional with that. But that's kind of one of my coping skills, is cleaning. My husband sees me doing it and he's like, everything, what's going on? What's going on with you? I'm like, I'm just ruminating on some things. I'm going to get it clear. I'll get it clear. How about you? What would you say, what is one of your coping skills?
Reading. I'm a big reader. And if I'm really like crazy stressed, like if I'm in just a bad spot mentally, if you see me eating peanut M&Ms, that's
you hit it. Ding.
My son and I laugh about it because he bought me some for my birthday one year. And I'm like, that's great because that is my coping mechanism.
There you go. So how did it become peanut M&Ms? There had to have been a moment. How did it become peanut
I have
M&Ms?
no idea. I've never taken the time to think back when that, and it's nothing else. It's specifically just peanut M&Ms is my one thing that it's like, okay, it's going to be okay. You're good.
Yeah. Well, if you ever decide to figure that out, I would love to know what it is. Just feel free to let me know. You can text me directly. All right. And I know we're getting a little closer on time. So I want to make sure we're also giving the people watching and listening some more skills too.
Sure.
So what wisdom would you pass to other ambitious women who want to build big, bold ventures without costing their peace or their relationships?
Yes. So first, I think it's important, most important for women to be, you start with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So great leaders are not born, they're made.
Agreed.
So if you realize that, hey, I'm not just going to pop out and be a great leader, it just doesn't happen. So then you ask yourself, how do I become great?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about I'm not great. It's about how do I become great? What is it going to take for me to become a great leader? And so you start with, let's say you have a team. You start with very clear, specific standards for every single person on your team, with metrics for each task. So when you communicate with them, expectations are clear. Yeah. Most leaders, and now I've been in rooms of thousands of CEOs in every kind of industry at every level, major companies. And most leaders are running by the seat of their pants. Yeah. That I've ever met. I mean, it's shocking how big multi-billion-dollar companies are completely chaotic and unorganized. Mm-hmm. So we went through the process, and it's very painful to take that time, again, that kind of step back and finding out every single role, every single position, every single requirement, every single competency, making sure we had metrics tied to everything so that when we would be able to evaluate them based on their implementation and the execution of it, right? It's like, how can you hold people accountable if they don't know what they're being held accountable to, right? Yeah. And then we created performance reviews based on those metrics. And then that made everything super easy because it was no longer, I'm frustrated with you, I can't stand you anymore, I fire you or whatever. Like, you're not reacting as a leader anymore. You're not acting out of feelings or emotions anymore. You're literally operating off of a standard that they knew coming in what the standard was, and they're held to that standard. So then that's why it's like, I'm going to coach them, inner coach them out in a way that is not fueled emotionally, but is based on the standard that was set and the requirements that we had. That made a huge difference as a leader, and especially as a woman. Yeah. Because for women, we have to be very careful with the way we lead, and especially strong personalities. And I am like a big teddy bear. Tammy and I laugh about this, that we're big teddy bears, but people tell me they're intimidated by me. And I'm like, what? Why in the world would you be intimidated by me? I'm like the last person that you should be intimidated by. But what I realized is that if you're not being kind in communication and speaking in a way that is respectful and communicating in a way that helps people not feel like you're being harsh or hard line or whatever, especially as a woman. And most women leaders I see are hard and come across more harshly. And it hurts them and their people, because if you know that people have a hard time taking that kind of communication from a woman, you just have to adjust. Yeah. It's now I can say things to people in a way that is kind, but goes back to the standard of, we need to talk about what's going on with your performance and why you haven't been achieving what you said your goals were and what the organization's goals were. And people wind up coaching themselves out, to be honest with you. But then it's not a mark on us in the sense of I left because she was a, you know what. And so I think that that's really important for women. And I know that for years I held back a lot from becoming who I knew I was called to be and doing everything I was called to do by God because of the fear of being looked at that way. Not wanting people to, she's a this or she's a that. And I just finally got to the point where it's like, okay, God, I'm going to step into the greatness that you're calling me to. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I'm just going to go for it. And then be as kind as I can and as gentle as I can with everybody along the way so that I can't be pointed to as handling things inappropriately. I would say for women, that's very, very important.
Yeah. So and probably the biggest point I was pulling out of that was if they want to build something, they need to have clarity on what are the objectives, right? What is your goal? Reverse engineer it.
Exactly.
That way you can be very clear as you're bringing people in, right? The small business owners can typically only grow to such a size because they're afraid to bring in other people.
Yep.
And if they would just define the objectives, now you can lead people from objectives rather than from emotions.
And what you just said is key too, because everybody's all about me. I got to do this. I got to build this. Every company I own, I'm a partner in. I don't own any company by myself. I partnered with great people who run all of those operations. And then we work together to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to help them scale. So to me, that's leverage, which is another one of my favorite words. But it's really about, you know, would you rather have a little bit of a whole lot or a lot of nothing, right?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to partner, and with the right people, of course, but doing it with people that they have a different skill set or a different strength. And then that takes the pressure off of you as a leader, that I don't have to worry about that because this person is going to partner with me and take that on. And then I can focus on what my vision is.
Yeah. No, so good. And true. All right. We ready for the last one?
Sure.
And I appreciate you sticking with me.
Sure.
So what's one piece practice, big or small, that you recommend every listener adopt starting today?
I believe the number one character trait we should all strive for is humility. And that humility in the sense of you have to be honest with yourself about what you need to change. That helps you be gracious and honest with other people about things you need to change and things you see that they need to change. And that also helps you be kind to people and kind to yourself through the process. Because if you, I personally believe that was Jesus's greatest character trait is humility. And I just think it's so important. C.S. Lewis had said, and I put this in that book, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And humility changes everything.
It does. And that is definitely something I think from a worldly view, so many people, all of us at some point can struggle with.
Yeah.
Right. Sheila, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you coming. There's already been some comments dropped about gratitude for the nuggets of wisdom.
Absolutely.
So we are going to say goodbye to the audience, and we'll see you all again soon.